Where is the role of entrepreneurship in this whole thing? If I'm a young person, I'm fascinated by this field, where are some opportunities from your vantage point?
Yeah, so this is something that I've observed in the last 5-10 years in India. There is a tremendous amount of energy to come up with local solutions that are innovative, cost effective, and very directed to the local problem. And I have seen companies, and I know that there are IATM startups that are looking at sensing technologies because recognizing that the first step in solving a problem is in identifying it, in measuring it, in understanding where the problem is coming from. So that requires sensing technologies, and 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 there's some very interesting new work happening here. And again, just for reference, right? The uh, the air quality problem here is unique in the sense that your WHO standard for PM 2.5 is at 5 microgram per meter cube. So you've got to build instruments that can detect and tell you what's happening at below 1 microgram per meter cubed. So you need that sort of sensitivity and that sort of you need to have some high resolution to figure out, are you at 4.9 or 5. Our standards here are much lower, very different, right? Our standards here are very different. They could be at the PM 2.5 standard is about 35 to 40 microgram per meter cubed. So our need for technology, the ideal devices that can work here could be very different than the ones you might want to put out in a place where they're trying to satisfy a standard at 5 microgram per meter cubed. And so there's a potential to create technologies that are relatively low cost, that could allow for ubiquitous sampling. And I think some of those solutions aren't going to be built outside, right? They're going to be built here. And in talking to some entrepreneurs here, I know that they're actually addressing that problem with local technologies. Additionally, so you're putting these sensors in, but additionally, I think there's potential for entrepreneurship on the data side of things, right? Now there's so much data coming out. How do you make sense of it? How do you map these? How do you go back and there's a variety of ways to monetize it, and the folks out there are going to be much smarter than I am. But as a simple case to observe is, if you knew which were the dense spots, and if you could overlay it with people's affordability, you could find a way to connect the right products with the right people, with the right solution, so to speak, right? And so some of that really requires new thinking, new skills, and I think the entrepreneurs are probably the best place to address it. And I think in India, I wouldn't say that we have a tremendously established, or we don't have a well-established industry in the air quality side of things. Yeah. So, which is an opportunity for young entrepreneurs to come in and disrupt a market that's easy to disrupt, because a lot of the existing players are, maybe smaller subsidiaries of foreign manufacturers, or aren't that well established, that the barrier to entry is very high. So I think it's a good opportunity for entrepreneurs.
Anything we pay for, we know how to demand quality.
Correct.
With air quality, we pay for it with our health.
Correct.
Is there a tool out there that can inform people about, let's say, put some parameters in from the air around me and understand what the true cost that I am paying? So then I can sort of I can demand more of the air around me. Have you seen any ideas like this that you think can take role?
Yeah, so in the US, there are online tools that will get you to cost. Now, what is the cost from a health perspective because of your local air quality, which in turn gets you to, where do you want to address the challenges with some urgency. So this is part of what is referred to in the US as environmental justice. And because sometimes the worst air is also in the poorest neighborhoods. It's just in the way you lay out your air quality monitors and so on. There are just these pockets sometimes that are left where communities might be living near ports where a lot of big diesel trucks are coming in, and then you're exposed to all of the emissions, and you may or may not have a monitor in there, so it's not recognized as being an area that requires addressal. So by combining sensor data and these monitors that exist all over, and now also by looking at satellite data, you can now start mapping at pretty high resolution. And there's some really good satellite products right now that exist that give you a good first idea information about air quality in general. They're not great for pinpointing out exactly what's happening, let's say, in a 100-acre campus maybe, right? But you can figure out what are the bigger regional differences, and you can go down to urban quite well. And so combining these tools with other socioeconomic models out there are tools. I don't know personally of tools in India, but in the US they are available.
I think there is an opportunity again
Yes.
for somebody to contextualize
100%.
those kinds of tools for India.